For thousands of years, we paddled the western shores of Vancouver Island, hunting whales, seals, and living off the bounty of our rivers. We Huu-ay-aht traded with our friends and fought wars with neighboring tribes to defend our fishing rights to our river. Today, battling the ecological destruction of our traditional fishing and hunting territories, we are rebuilding our lands, transforming our culture, and restoring our people to greatness.
It doesn't matter what nationality you are, let's work together, rebuild the rivers the logging companies destroyed.
Our culture and our spirituality and our chiefs and our elders and our youth are all coming together and reconnecting to the river, to the fish, and to the lands.
And when you look at the Sarita River, you know, it was a beautiful estuary. Still is. And our goal is to have that river be a productive salmon-producing stream for our people again.
Since the beginning of time, our people have lived and died in these valleys. Our way of life connected us to the very soul of this land. This is the ongoing saga of the rebirth of our river, Enakshethis, the heart of our people. Throughout the centuries, we believed in Hishuktsawak, meaning everything is one, everything is connected. And so today's efforts to rebuild the river are intricately tied to the rebirth of our culture and community. By tradition, each of our chiefs had a duty to maintain our rivers and small creeks, preserving each run of salmon for future generations. Deep inside our traditional homeland lies the river we've been trying to bring back to life. Logging and commercial fishing destroyed the Sarita River in the 1940s and 50s, and beginning in the mid-1990s, we embarked on a mission to restore its greatness. We approached governments and logging companies, but few would assist us. Then we took our message to the people, all people.
If they wanted to go hunting, they could go hunting. And if they wanted to fish, they could fish. And the way that river is today, we can't do that anymore. That is where our people used to live.
The invitation to join us was heard. Along with increasing pressures from environmental groups, logging companies like Macmillan Bloedel were starting to see the light. Reducing and eventually eliminating clear-cut logging was seen as essential to preserving a future forest industry in the province of British Columbia. We knew what had to be done, but how could we structure this bold plan to fix what had taken the Creator millions of years to produce? In order for us to receive the things that we needed to restore the Sarita watershed and eventually all of the 35 rivers, streams, and creeks in our territory, we came to the conclusion that we weren't going to be able to do that by standing on the outside and making a bunch of noise. That was a very difficult decision for us to make, and we thought long and hard about it, because what we were proposing was building partnerships with those peoples and that industry that destroyed our territory. But as the provincial forest industry struggled with meeting the demands of the new greener approach to logging, companies like the once mighty Macmillan Bloedel found it hard to compete globally, and it was bought out by U.S. giant Weyerhaeuser, who, fortunately for the Huu-ay-aht, was also rethinking its forestry practices.
We were pretty pompous. We were pretty well convinced that we had all the answers. We didn't need any input from anybody because we knew what we were doing. We were managers of the resource. We really truly believed that by clear cutting down to the bank, by all the practice we had, that we were working in the best interest of the corporation, and best interests of others were completely secondary. And I think we've made a huge, huge step in the direction that we do not have to clear cut right down to the riverbank. We don't have to continuously clear cut. And we can do all the things that we need to do and still work in partnership with the land, with First Nations, with environmental groups. That's been the biggest shift in my career.
So we had the ear of Weyerhaeuser and smaller companies like Hayes Forest Services. But how could we build a viable partnership that would benefit all parties and get our river rebuilt at the same time? The answer was all around us, our precious surviving forests. After several years of struggling with government agencies for dollars, a difficult decision was made. Not unlike an operation where a limb is removed to save a life, we came up with a plan to partner with logging companies, to selectively log some of our most sacred territory. And the money earned from the sale of the wood would be put directly into the restoration of the Sarita River.
When we met with Weyerhaeuser, we always said, what you take out, something must go back in. And we're willing to let you harvest if you put something back into the water and into the land.
Ever since we formed our Natural Resources Office, Huu-ay-aht Councillor Larry Johnson has acted as a liaison between logging companies and our people. We started this process by introducing the management, contractors, and fallers to our traditional lands.
Right off the bat, I'd like to welcome you all to the Huu-ay-aht Traditional Territory on behalf of Tlishan, the Tyee-hut-with of the Huu-ay-aht First Nation. With that, I'll pass it over now to one of the hereditary chiefs of the Huu-ay-aht First Nation, Nexus Maak Sissenup.
Thanks everyone for being here today. We're here to ask you to be respectful and to recognize the significance of this area. And the reason that we're asking you to be respectful is because it's going to be respect that is going to strengthen the relationship between the Huu-ay-aht First Nation, our people, the land, and Weyerhaeuser, and more importantly, the people who are actually doing the work on the land.
Okay, here's a CMT. Can't tell what the number is, but what we normally do is we'll walk around the whole tree. Because my crew's already been here and marked it for us, I'll try to find the feature.
As traditional protectors of this land, we felt that if we were going to have logging here, it would be selective and leading edge, pointing the way for a new type of forestry. Archaeologists and Huu-ay-aht cultural experts would identify so-called culturally modified trees, or CMTs. Any trees altered by our ancestors during ancient harvesting would be marked and set aside. Fallers working in this sacred stand of trees would also have to work around bear dens, stream crossings, and other ecologically sensitive areas.
So I guess we gotta figure out just sort of where all the CMTs are and how we...
Getting these seasoned loggers used to the idea of cutting selectively around CMTs is a challenge, as the telltale signs are sometimes hard to spot.
You know, the brush is really thick and it's hard to see from one ribbon to the next, so you don't know how big the patch is or if it's just like a CMT or is it a wildlife tree or whatever. So yeah, it's a lot better if we can be made aware.
For centuries, the Huu-ay-aht and other tribal groups used ingenious methods for cutting planks for their homes and felling trees for their canoes. These trees will be left behind and will become the focal point for future historical nature walks for tourists visiting the area.
When we first came in here, it was quite overwhelming because all the ribbons everywhere. You didn't quite know what to expect when you went down there. But the natives and the engineers worked with us, and we managed to get through it all and it's worked out very well. I can appreciate the land more now that I've personally seen the CMTs on the land. That was quite exciting to come to work and see that.
Rebuilding this river is about so much more than habitat restoration. This journey we're on will be a spiritual and cultural rebirth for our people. The clear-cutting of our forests and destruction of our food source is only one historical footnote in the gradual destruction of our culture.
Our nation was brought to a standstill because of the federal government. They introduced the Indian Act, they introduced the banning of potlatches. In other words, they attempted to stop us from living. They tried to take us away from our homeland. They put us over into residential schools. And they tried to sever our tie to the land and the resources. And they succeeded for a while. But they did not have an opportunity to complete their mission. So now we're in a rebirth, and we're going to come back. Hoo-ay as a nation is rebuilding. You cannot wipe out a people, and that's what we've proved to the federal government of Canada. You can't wipe out people by legislation. You can't wipe us out by assimilating us. We'll always be Hoo-ay.
The end of the salmon run on the Sarita and the policies of the Department of Indian Affairs meant most of the Hoo-ay had to abandon our traditional villages at Numukamas, Cookswies, and Chuppas and move to the reserve at Pachina Bay. We've been living here since 1969, a community of about 550 located on the southwest coast of Vancouver Island. While commercial fishing and even logging sustained much of our population for years, the loss of food sources in our territory meant traditions such as communal feasting came to an end. For centuries, canoes from visiting tribes would journey to visit our territories, to feast and witness dances in our big houses. One of our goals was to rebuild a traditional style building which would help restore our cultural traditions and provide a recreation center for our youth. The project officially started in 1999 when one of our elders and spiritual leaders, Willie Sport, took several of our people to the site of giant trees for a ceremony before they were felled for use in the new House of Hoo-ay. Willie Sport held a lot of knowledge, not only about our people and our histories and our culture, but also about our territory and our resources. Unfortunately, Willie has passed on. We no longer have access to Willie as a person, but we still have Willie's knowledge that he's left with us. We were fortunate that he blessed the logs that went into the House of Hoo-ay, and then after that, he went home to be with his ancestors. Construction of our big house, destined to be one of the largest wood beam structures in North America, began in the spring. The 40-foot vertical posts are huge, but are dwarfed by the massive 115-foot logs which support the roof and run the length of the big house. The project would keep tribal members and independent contractors busy for over a year. Each